for one. Now the South Bank Show, presented by Melvin Bragg.
Hello. For years, Danny Kaye was magic for many cinema goers. Although one of a select company of American performers who crossed the Atlantic after the war to dazzle a starstruck and hungry British public, he stands out for a prodigious blend of talents that put him in a class of his own. His very versatility makes him hard to categorize. Was he a comedian, a dancer, a singer, or an actor? Or in later life, a humanitarian, a conductor, a pilot, or a chef? He was all of them. He always proudly referred to himself as an entertainer. I wasn't born stupid, he said. It took work to get this way. His was an intense professionalism that passed itself off as inspired spontaneity, his own brand of scat rap, and a degree of audience communication that's rarely been equalled. For years, he called this theatre behind me, the London Palladium, his home. Ken Howard's film gives us the first profile of the man who became Walter Mitty and Hans Christian Andersen, but always remained nobody's fool.
Depressive Pictures present. Hello, Fresno, goodbye. Produced by our humanic and pie depressive.
Now you know the name of the picture and you'd like to see it, but no.
Screenplay by Gluck, from a stage play by Motz, from a story by Blip, from a chapter by Rung, from a sentence by Dokes, from a comma by Stokes, from an idea by Groks, based on a Joe Miller's jokes.
Now you know the name of the picture and who wrote it, and you'd still like to see it, but no. Art direction, Finkel Puff Interiors, Minerva Buff Photography, Alonzo Tech recorded sound as Needlebeck upholstery by Zachary, Knickknackery by Thackeray, Terpsichore by Dickory, and Dickory by Doc. Now finally, at last, comes the picture. And what do we see?
Saint-Saëns
And Georges Bizet,
Très Bizet,
Vieux-Temps Souper, Massenet.
and Offenbach.
Do you dig him, Jacques?
Very often.
Well, Frère Jacques, I dig you, Jacques, I dig you, Jacques. Massenet and Bizet, Massenet and Bizet.
Massenet and Bizet, Massenet and Bizet.
Offenbach. How about Wagner?
Devout.
And Haydn?
Who?
Joseph Haydn.
Who?
Haydn.
Will let him come out.
Paganini.
Rossini.
Toscanini.
Puccini.
Cacciaturian.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. And what's his name?
Mr. Beatley's
And you know that cat?
Skeetley's Too high.
Oh, too low. Oh,
I think I benefited from being born and raised in Brooklyn. That was one of the most cosmopolitan neighborhoods. And that was one of the great joys about it. It's where you learned you didn't dislike anybody because he was an Italian, a Jew, or an Irishman, or what else.
We also have on the other side of the coin, we have a bad bunch of fellas, gangsters. We had shootings in the street.
My father, Jacob Kaminsky, was a simple tailor, and pleased to be one. When I was 13, my mother died.
Danny was a student at the same school with me. We did our homework together. You should know from it. We never understood what the homework was. We were laughing and laughing and laughing. That's all we did.
So they sent for a witch with a terrible twitch to ask how my future impressed her. She took one look at me and cried, hee. What else could he be but a jester?
Danny worked at a store that dispenses ice cream cones. He put so much stuff into the class, he couldn't get it out. They found out what he was doing, they fired him. He worked for an insurance company, and he made a blooper, a real big mistake. I don't think he worked there more than a day, out on his ass.
I ran away from home for the simple reason that I was bursting with curiosity about the world outside of Brooklyn. I talked a pal of mine, Louis Eisen, into going along.
We both had an ear for music. We loved melodious tunes. And we used to sing, and when we sang, we called ourselves the Harmony Kings, also Red and Blackie.
I was about 12 when Danny arrived with his pal, Lou Eisen, and they were a harmony team. And when they came to White Road, they continued to sing together. In addition to the tennis courts and the golf course and the horseback riding and the swimming and the boating, in the evening, they would all be treated to some sort of entertainment.
Those kind of places were really the training ground for entertainers. Summer stock was great for actors, but for entertainers, singers, dancers, and comedians, the Bourse Circuit was the best place. The first time I ever saw Danny, all the people in the camp were crowded onto that front porch or around it, and he was going insane, just insane, doing all these crazy, crazy things and making them laugh so hard.
He was a tumula. Somebody say at the edge of a pool, they push him into the pool. That sort of thing, that's a tumula. Or fall into the water, you know. Have his finger up his nose and fall into the water. Tumula.
I think people thought he was discovered years later and that he'd suddenly gotten great, but he was always great.
By 33, he was, of course, the leading act at the hotel. We had a dance team, and they thought it might be fun to include Danny in some of their numbers, and realized that he was a natural dancer. And they taught him to dance. By the end of the summer, they were good enough to be signed up by the Marcus show.
Marcus was getting ready to go to the Orient, and he needed a dance team. The act was called Harvey, Young, and Kaye, and they started off as a serious act, but then something happened that Danny fell or slipped, and when the audience laughed, then he was a comedian from then on. Every country we went into, he had to learn something in their language so he could say it on stage, and then the audience would always die laughing.
Danny had to be funny in Korea. He had to be funny in Japan to audiences who didn't understand English. So that man really learned his trade.
This gibberish way that he would talk, and people would look at him like they say, what in the world language is that?
German. Was haben Sie ausgehalten, das Kneipe de haben, das Schmerzen wie die Hölle, Knöllschmerzen, das Kneipe de haben, haben Sie geflummt wie die Halm mit Walzgeil, hast du geflummt, das Malze die Knöll wie die Hülsen?
He was smart enough to know that he had to get out away from that show. And we all had a big party for him. and he left us.
For a jester's chief employment is to kill himself for your enjoyment, and a jester unemployed is nobody's fool.
Danny may have thought he was a budding star in the Orient. When he got back to New York, he was anything but. In fact, he was a man without a job, without a dollar too, because his father used to have to give him the odd dollar bill. But he did get one job, which was working with an exotic stripper called Sally Rand, holding her fans in very strategic positions, until one day a blue bottle settled on his nose and Danny lost his fans and then lost his job. He was lucky, though. Henry Sherrick, who was a very well-known London impresario, came to him and said, "How would you like to come to London? Play at the Dorchester Hotel." He was working with a fellow called Nick Long, but neither of them were much good. In fact, Danny said,
"It was a disaster. It was pathetic. It was incongruous. It was pitiful. It was shattering. It was stunning. It was debilitating. It was thought-provoking. And it was bloody awful."
One of the first times I ever worked with Danny was in the Astoria, where they made shorts. Before the big movie, there'd be the newsreel and then a comedy. Ha-ha, a short. And this was about a dance hall.
Come, my sweet, let us trip delight sarcastic.
Tickets, please.
Tickets? Tickets? Stop bothering me for tickets. I can picture us both, my darling. Yes, gliding down the river together. Music being played by gypsies. The boat being pulled by vulgar boatmen.
I don't like vulgar boatmen. I like nice people.
I must say I loved doing them. They were fun. They were fun to do. And you did work with awfully good people. And of course, Danny was marvelous.
Do you know there are 3 women to every man in the world?
Look, darling, no horse in play.
And if a girl wants a man, she has to stand up and holler, "Gimme!"
Look, my little owl. Who's teaching this loving? You or me?
The film cameos led nowhere, and Danny was soon back in a small-time satirical revue put together by an ex-Borscht Belt director, Nat Lichtman. And then, one day,
he brought in this very kind of shy, quiet lady who sat down at the piano and started to demonstrate this material. And I was standing on the other side of the room, and I'm not kidding, this is the absolute truth. I saw Danny go,
"I know you. You used to work at my dad's dental practice when you were 14.
Then Sylvia started to play this little song. It's called "Who Killed Cock Robin?" It was just a little pop song when "Who killed Cock Robin? Oh, who killed Cock Robin? Oh, no." And Danny loved the swing of it. The next thing you know, he is singing the song.